So many people look at owning a house as the ultimate financial goal, but personally, I feel like that just does not make sense for a majority of people, including myself. For the longest time in American history, owning a house was the dream. You know, everybody wanted to have the home that builds in value over time, then look to pass that home down to your kids or grandkids, or just sell the house eventually and use it as retirement money to travel or basically have whatever you want with it. I think at the start of 2008, during the crisis of the housing market, we started to see this shift in mindset. And now almost 20 years later, we're actually starting to see a lot of people turn what used to be an American dream on its head because owning a house does not make any sense. There are a few exceptions to that. Like I think buying a house cash is perfectly fine if you are really well off. And even then, a lot of the times it can just be a headache more than a profitable thing. But in this video, I want to go over some of the main reasons why I think owning a house is a horrible idea. And a lot of people in the financial scene are starting to agree with it. The first reason is, and a lot of people will see this as a good thing depending on how you look at it, but you are locking yourself into a almost guaranteed of 30 years of debt with an unpredictable economy. And with the interest rates that are happening nowadays on the housing market, the interest alone can cost as much as the house, if not even more. There's also things like property taxes that can go up even when your income does not go up, which for a majority of Americans, it hasn't been. There's also insurance that will continue to climb as you own a house, especially if you are in a state that has, let's say Florida, for example, with a bunch of hurricanes, any type of natural disasters, really. There is also the maintenance cost that is basically a permanent subscription of things that you feel like you will never have to do, but end up doing the most. Not only do my parents who own a house have constant maintenance issues that are still backlogged to this day, I have a few friends who own houses, and during the winter storms or during the flooding season, they are constantly getting hit with these huge bills of repair costs. And if you are renting, for example, that is not something you have to think about twice. And if you do have to think about repairs, it is fixed for you for free. Something as simple as a roof issue could be over 5 figures gone immediately. A roof problem isn't something that you can just wait on either. Most of the time, you have to get it done quickly. Even when it does come time to, let's say, sell the house that you want to get rid of. And for the sake of the argument, let's say that you did actually make some profit on the house. Selling the house alone is going to have so many different fees to go along with it. Agent fees, concessions. Usually there's repairs that you have to get done before you can even sell the house. There's also an opportunity cost when it comes to buying a house. The down payment that you use could easily be invested elsewhere that could give you the same amount of profits with way less of a headache. And wrapping back to the 2008 idea, home value is not guaranteed to grow, especially after seeing what happened in 2008. Now, most of the time, yes, the house values will grow, but we all know nowadays it is not certain anymore. The next topic I want to get into is the market and just economic risk overall. When it comes to buying something with that big of a price tag, the market doesn't really wait around for anybody. You could be looking to buy a house based off your income or financial situation at the time, and you could be buying into a cycle peak. Or even if you do get a great buy on a lower price for a house, prices could easily just stay stagnant for years while you're still paying that same bad interest rate on the house. Not to mention mortgage rates could easily wreck any affordability overnight, and local markets are different from the overall national ones, so it kind of varies from state to state. Or if the government decides to add any new zoning or developments in your neighborhood, the value could just instantly decrease. On the flip side, they could also increase, but it's not something I would bet on. There's been talks of a recession going around, and recessions don't pause mortgages at all. And with all the layoffs happening right now, especially in the tech industry, layoffs hit way harder when you have a mortgage. The idea of house value always going up is just historically not true anymore. Looking at the finance reasons aside, there's also so much emotional and lifestyle traps that go with owning a home. Some people are okay with this, but personally, I feel like when you own a home, it's tying you down to a location, which might seem great, especially if it's a awesome location. Like I currently love where I live, but you never know what that place is going to look like 10 years, 20 years, 30 years down the line, making it to where you end up hating where you live and you're stuck in this mortgage for another 20 years and you can't really do anything about it besides maybe try to sell and flip. Not to mention if there's relationships involved with it, thinking you own a house one day and then waking up the next day to find out you don't anymore, it can be devastating. A lot of people also start to justify bad financial choices whenever they own a home because they think they're finally done with everything, or they have this idea of it's my home and I'm never going to change it, it's never going to go away, so they invest more money than they should. There's a lot of emotional attachment that clouds rational decisions when it comes to owning a home. FOMO drives so much bad timing, and people confuse stability with progress. And if you are not a motivated person, if you're the type of person to procrastinate a lot, renovations don't become this big project that you get done. They are just something that gets half done and sits in place with nothing to show for it. I know people who have owned houses and started to literally expand onto the house with the land they have, got half of the room done. The issue is that there's no stability to it and they can't live in it at all. So it's just a room sitting there with nothing left. But they already invested a ton of money into it, so now it's just a glorified storage closet. I don't know about you, but paying tens of thousands of dollars for a storage closet is not a good ROI.
The next category, it might be a bit of a hot take, but I don't really think owning a house is a thing. You can simply, I mean, obviously if you stop paying taxes on it, it's gone. There's also HOAs a lot of the times in today's neighborhoods where they control what your house looks like, what you can do with your house. They can raise fees or lower fees as well. You know, you end up at Home Depot and Lowe's way more than you ever want to be. And unless you're a real handy person, doing stuff DIY, it sounds fun and it sounds cheap, but the saying buy nice or buy twice is a thing for a reason. Personally, I would never cheap out on a contractor. I've seen way too many bad jobs done. I was listening to a Graham Stephan podcast the other day. I don't know if it was Graham Stephan or if it was a Ramsey podcast, but maybe they were both doing it together. Either way, they're going back and forth on the topic of what's better, to rent a home or buy a home. Of course, Ramsey's on the side of buying a home, and Graham Stephan, on the other hand, was arguing that rent nowadays is actually a better option. He recently sold all of his real estate, which has kind of inspired me to make this video to begin with. And if you do the math, the hard truth is that renting is just overall cheaper when you factor in all the costs. Just take your investments to the stock market and just buy index funds instead of looking to own a home. It's way easier for your mental health and your bank account. Most equity grows super slow in the early years anyways, and appreciation barely beats inflation in most areas. You still have to pay utilities and taxes and insurance even if it does drop in value, but if you move within 5 years, buying often does lose you money. Personally, one of the things I love most about renting is the idea of that I can live wherever I want to. Yes, I do have to sign a year lease most of the time, but after that year is up, I can go to any state, any neighborhood, any apartments, whether it's downtown or in the suburbs. I'm not tied down to anything. Renting overall just gives me so much more freedom that I feel like a lot of people should start valuing more. Back on the Graham Stephan podcast thing, I really recommend you guys go watch it because I really agree with his argument on it. There is so much social and cultural pressure to own a house, especially on TikTok and just really anywhere you go to on social media. It's this huge praised idea that is like the ultimate goal. Society is continuously selling this ownership idea as maturity, and there's also most of the time family members who, especially on the older side, keep telling you like, oh, you're throwing away your money on rent, you should look to own a house and start to build something towards that. Because, you know, when they grew up, that's just the way it was. They had better interest rates, of course, and actually a better opportunity to buy houses. Can't really blame them from thinking that way because that's just how they were raised. At the time, it was a good idea. If you're watching this video, I just advise you from here on out, anytime you see a TikTok or Instagram reel of a realtor talking about homeownership or why it's a great time to buy or even a great time to sell, you really should take it as a grain of salt, because it's important to keep in mind that realtors do not get paid if they tell you to wait. They need you to take action immediately. Sometimes I open up Facebook and see a lot of my old high school friends buying houses and starting families, and I think that's a great thing. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing if they're making that next step in their life and they do want to settle down somewhere for even 30 years. At the end of the day, if that's what makes them happy, I want everybody to be happy. Just make sure that if you do end up buying a house, you're not doing it because of pressure from other people. Don't fall into the classic lifestyle creep that is disguised as upgrading, when in reality, you're putting yourself into a more financial hardship. In my opinion, right now, at least, buying only makes sense if you're looking to stay long term, the market's in a good spot, your income is guaranteed to stay stable, obviously didn't overpay on the house, and you're not overspending on a bunch of upgrades just to get it to where you want to be. And of course, if nothing goes wrong, which that is a lot of assumptions. At the end of the day, just do what makes you happy, not me or anybody else. I do actually hope to own a house one day, but I refuse to pay an insane amount of interest on it. And personally, the headache is just not worth it right now. Consider subscribing and liking the video as it helps me out a ton, and leave a comment down below on what finance questions you have next.